everyone! So as I mentioned in a previous video, I have been going a little plant crazy here at the new place, and I'm buying plants faster than I can pot them. I actually tried to re-pot my plants in like thrifted containers. I just think that you can find really cool and interesting vases and bowls and whatnot, but I kind of have run out of different pots that I could use, but I have plenty of plants that need to get potted. But we also have a bunch of like spare wood in our backyard, so I thought that I would use some of that to make a cute little cubed pot. I'm actually planning on using some of the cedar fence board that they left in our backyard, I guess from doing the fence when they built it. So it's kind of neat because it's a little weathered on one side, and if you've ever seen weathered cedar, it looks really cool. It kind of almost looks silvery, so I think that would look pretty cool as a planter. And also I'm using cedar because it is rot resistant, which is good for, you know, keeping a plant that you have to water all the time. Technically, I guess this is a craft hoard video because the wood was already here at my house. And I'm only using tools and materials that I have in my hoard. So yeah, I guess I'm gonna label this a craft hoard video, which you guys should already know by now, by the title. But anyway, enough of me blabbing on, let's get started. I gathered cedar fence board, wood glue, tape, sandpaper, and I also used aquarium silicone caulk, but that shouldn't be necessary for everyone. You'll see why I used it later in the video. Using a compound miter saw, I cut 4 pieces of the board at a 45-degree angle on the ends, with the short faces measuring the same as the width of the board. For this board that I have, it was something like 5.5 inches, I think. If you don't have a compound miter saw, you could just use a miter box and a saw. You just need to get the edges at that 45-degree angle. Then cut one more piece of board, with straight ends this time, again at the same measurement as the width of the board, making this one square. And here are all my cut pieces. Weathered cedar gets this cool metallic-y silver looking finish when it's been left in the sun for a while, so only one side of the cedar got the sun-kissed look because they threw it down and didn't touch it for however long. So one side was exposed to the sun and the other side wasn't. And initially I planned on having that look be on the outside of the whole planter, but I wasn't thinking when I cut the pieces, and I ended up having 2 pieces with the cool silvery finish on the outside and 2 with the normal cedar look on the outside. It's not that big of a deal. I figured if I wanted all the sides to match, then I could just leave the planter outside for a while. I laid out a few long pieces of tape, and then I laid the 4 pieces down like so, using the other piece of wood, the one with the straight edge, to help me line these pieces up. I applied wood glue to the angled edges and along the bottom edge. I placed the bottom piece down and started rolling the side pieces over. The tape holds the edges together tightly. Now, I didn't measure the bottom one correctly, so this bottom piece didn't fit as snugly as it's supposed to, so my bottom piece did not want to stay in place. I removed it for the time being and just glued the sides up. I used the tape to tightly hold everything together. These are pretty much just acting like clamps. So when those were nice and tightly taped together, I glued in the bottom piece, and then I let it all dry. So you can see this bottom piece, it was too small, so it had a gap on the sides, which isn't the worst thing because planters generally should have drainage, but this whole thing is made of wood, so the drainage should be just fine if I covered these gaps, which I wanted to do because they were just spots that dirt could easily fall through and water would just flow through instead of like getting absorbed by the wood, which is how I wanted it to work. So I made the decision to completely seal this bottom edge. I used some aquarium silicone that I had on hand, but yeah, you guys shouldn't have to do this part if you measured and cut the bottom piece correctly. I let that silicone cure, and then I lightly sanded the edges of the planter. I didn't sand it on the side faces because I wanted that rough cedar look, as well as the metallic-y look on the two sides. I was kind of worried that if I sanded over that, then it would start to sand the finish off. And then the planter is done. All that's left is planting something in it. I chose to plant a variegated rubber plant. These things are pretty low maintenance and cat friendly. Two big pluses. And here it is, all done. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, please leave a like, and if you want to see more, then feel free to subscribe. I post art videos every Tuesday and DIY videos every Thursday. Thank you to my patrons for helping me produce this video. If you are interested in becoming a patron or just learning about what Patreon is, I'll leave a link to mine right up here and you can go check it out. If you have any questions or suggestions for future videos, please leave a comment down below, and I'll see you next week.